The wine locker, she said, was empty. I sell people stories they can drink. That's what wine is when you strip away the ceremony, a narrative trapped in glass, waiting for your mouth to believe it. I'm the head sommelier at a restaurant that tries to pretend it's not a temple. Velvet you only notice when it brushes your wrist, lighting that flatters faces and mistakes. My job is to keep the cellar alive and to make the loudest men feel like they discovered something softer than themselves. Myra used to say she fell in love with the way I listened to corks. You look at a bottle the way some people look at a coastline, she'd tease, and then pull me in by my tie and make me forget anything with a label. She managed exhibits at a museum 3 blocks away, which meant our nights overlapped just enough to ruin our mornings. We built a life of closing shifts and breakfast promises, of shared showers and the kind of jokes you can only tell in the bathroom, steam erasing the parts you can't say out loud. We were a cliché with better taste than most. The first lie arrived folded in linen. It was a Tuesday drowning in people who hated Wednesdays. I was half an hour into service, decanting a right bank Bordeaux the color of memory when a server handed me a crisp napkin with my name on it. "From a guest," she said, eyebrows up. "We get notes. Want to impress the table. Want to propose without dessert. Want to order the bottle with the price no one is supposed to say out loud." I wiped my hands and unfolded the napkin. "Locker 38B code is 1021. Emergency, please deliver to the terrace. Thank you. M." We keep private wine lockers for members who can't bear to leave their identities in their homes. 38B belonged to a new face with an old name, Morno, like the chef 2 neighborhoods over, but not that Morno. He'd rented the locker a month ago and already treated it like a confessional. People stash bottles the way they stash intentions. The code on the napkin was exactly the kind we warned them not to use: birthdays, obvious anniversaries. 1021 is Myra's birthday. It sat there in pencil like a dare. "Who gave you this?" I asked. The server nodded toward the corner. A woman I didn't recognize sat with her back to the room, hair up, dress that knew it could ask anything of a room and get it. Her companion was a silhouette of expensive choices. I pocketed the napkin and told myself stories about coincidences so I wouldn't have to believe the one about intention. Our locker room is a high-end closet with delusions of grandeur, glass-fronted cubbies, brass tags with numbers that pretend not to have meaning. I punched in 1021 and 38B clicked open like a mouth. 3 bottles presented themselves like alibis: a 2006 champagne that still believed in parties, a 2010 Barolo that would make anyone honest for at least one course, and a 2005 Rioja with a handwritten label, La Terraza, Spanish for terrace. The hand that had written it was careful, impatient, familiar. Myra has a way of writing R like she's flirting with the letter. I stood there too long, the way you do when you realize the script wants you to play a different role. Then the back hall door swung and Victor, our GM, popped his head in. "Everything okay?" "Private delivery," I said, cheerful, practiced. "Client wants terrace." Victor grimaced. "Please tell me they're not trying to smoke." "Only their consciences," I said, and produced a smile that got me through sommelier exams and weddings I didn't want to attend. I grabbed the Rioja and a pair of Zaltos and took the service stairs to the terrace, where we pretend the city isn't listening. The wind tasted like steel and ambition. The table in the corner had a view you could forgive yourself for telling a lie to keep. She was Myra, of course she was. She was an assistant to power. I could tell from the way she held her jaw, the way she let the man beside her speak first and then arranged the air afterward. She took the bottle like a decision and slid it into her bag. "Mr. Morno sends regrets," she said. This is for his guest. And the guest? I asked, because my job requires curiosity and plausible ignorance in equal measure. Arriving, she said, and was gone before I could ask whether the emergency was a flavor or a person. I left the terrace with the Rioja-shaped hole in my night throbbing where my pulse usually lives. I decanted 3 whites, denied a man a cigarette with charm, steered a couple away from the wine they could afford to the wine they'd thank me for remembering later. The napkin burned in my pocket. At 9:12, I got a text from Myra. Running late. Bored dinner devolved into a speech about chairs. Save me something good. The sort of note that usually made me smile. I typed back a heart and a bottle emoji like a person who believed that emoji could carry meaning where eyes weren't currently available. Then I went downstairs and opened 38B again, as if the locker could tell me something it had concealed the first time. Behind the 2 remaining bottles was a small white envelope. My name, Leo, in the careful, impatient hand. I slipped it into my jacket and spent an hour trying to be the sort of man who can carry a quiet storm under his suit. In the office, after the dinner rush exhaled, and the terrace decided it had briefly been Paris and could now go back to being a ledge, I opened the envelope. Bring La Terrazzo at 10. If you have to send someone, make sure they don't ask questions. I'll be in the navy blazer. Don't worry, it's just work. M. I should have laughed. I should have marched upstairs and delivered the message to the empty seat where my denial used to sit. Instead, I checked the time. 9:58. I'm a man whose whole life is minutes and temperature. The terrace camera monitors the back exit for legal reasons and stories. I told myself I was checking for compliance. At 10:03, the camera caught a woman in a navy blazer stepping into frame. Hair up. The hand on the rail, hers. The freckle near the wrist, hers. A man in a dark coat joined. A silhouette I knew without knowing how. Raphael, our sous chef from last year, now executive at the new hotel on the river, the one with the endless lobby and the cocktails that are more thesis than drink. He and Myra had conspired once on a pop-up menu for an opening where I poured wine and tried not to watch their mouths. They didn't kiss. They stood close like people trying not to prove a point. The assistant reappeared with the Rioja, and Myra took it and laughed in a way that twists a screw inside my ribs. No glass. They drank from the bottle. It's romantic if you're not paying the bills later. I closed the window I had no right to open and returned to the floor, because tipping culture is a religion, and you can't get a dispensation just because your life is auditioning for opera. At 11:40, the night downshifted and my body remembered that it had a front door it wanted to walk through. Myra texted me, "Come over, museum roof." I sent back a lie, still closing. Tomorrow. She sent back a heart and a star and a picture of her heels off, feet on a chair, the city trying to apologize in light. At home, the napkin and the letter waited in my pocket like small crimes. I took them out and placed them on the table next to the keys, next to the matchbox from the first bar we agreed at the same time had terrible music. The R in La Terrazza threw a look at me. I poured myself the end of a staff bottle we keep for arguments and stared at the envelope in the way you stare at a dog that used to be yours and now lives across the hall with someone nicer. Myra came in just after 1, hair loosening, blazer thrown over her shoulder like a decision. She returned my look with one I recognized, the face she uses on donors and me when they need different versions of the truth. "You're up," she said lightly, and then her eyes fell to the napkin and the note and the wedge of air between them. "I delivered your emergency," I said. "Was the terrace pleased?" Her mouth opened, then found a better shape. "It's not what you're thinking," she said, which is the least helpful sentence humans invented. I'm thinking you keep parts of your life in my cellar, I said, and felt something under the coolness of my tone strain. I'm thinking you didn't tell me because you preferred the person I am before I know things. She walked around the table and stood close without touching me. This is the point in arguments where bodies try to negotiate on behalf of ideas. Rafa asked me to help with a silent auction, she said. He needed a bottle with a story. I said our seller could loan a narrative if we smiled at the right member. I wrote the note quickly and badly, and I'm sorry about the code. I didn't think you'd be the one who opened the locker. You wrote my name on an envelope, I said. Who did you think would hold it? Her hand rose like she meant to touch my face, and then decided my face wasn't current technology. I thought I could keep the work separate, she said. I thought I could drink the story without swallowing the consequences. Did you drink it with him? I asked. Yes, she said, honest in the way we learned to be when we stopped apologizing for the things we weren't going to change. We laughed at something that wasn't funny. We remembered a night when the three of us did this for free and thought we invented art. We stood near the edge and pretended it was a metaphor. We did not take off any clothes, if that's the inventory you want. I want to know whether I'm the person you tell the truth to first, I said. She sighed and sat on the edge of the table in the dangerous way that makes a sommelier forget every vintage he's memorized. You are the person I tell the finished truth to, she said. I wanted this to be over before I told you it happened. Clean, boring, forgivable. That's a lot of past tense for someone still wearing the bottle on her mouth, I said. And then I stood because if I didn't move I would say the other sentences, the ones that plant flags in places you don't come back from. She followed me into the kitchen. The tile absorbed our history like it always does. Do you want me to say I'm in love with him? She asked, almost angry. I'm not. I want him to think I'm still the version of me who lived on floors and drank cheap wine and believed we could fund a revolution with energy. I want you to think I'm the version of me who isn't tired. I want to think it too. Both is a word, I said again, hatting and loving the way it fits in a mouth. We didn't make up against the counter like we had on nights less loaded. We moved closer like a storm gathering around the same idea. Her fingers slid under my shirt and pressed against my spine like she was trying to keep me from falling away. I kissed her because there are languages your throat remembers even when your head spends all day forgetting. There was heat, and it wasn't a solution. It was a statement. I am here. So are you. We stopped before our bodies said something our morning couldn't afford. Tomorrow, I said, and meant a room with a couch and a woman with a legal pad. She nodded as if I had asked her to help move a painting. Tomorrow, she said back, and went to wash her face with the care of someone who knows what needs to come off. We found a therapist with books everywhere and a looking-away gaze, the kind that lets you say mean things without flinching. We built new rules not because rules save anyone, but because they give shame less furniture. She would not use my cellar as a shortcut. I would not use silence as proof of competence. We would set one night a week on the calendar and not apologize to anyone who wanted to put their name on it. When we slipped, we were obvious about it and paid the fine in questions instead of accusations. Rafa came to dinner 2 weeks later with a donor who could buy my building with a shrug. He saw me see him and did not flinch. After the donor left for cigars he wouldn't smoke, Rafa came to the pass and spoke in the quiet voice kitchens reserve for bad news. I'm sorry, he said, not for asking her to help, for enjoying the part where she did. Enjoyment is not a crime, I said. Using my locker for the prosecution is. He nodded. I won't do it again. I figured you wouldn't, I said. It's a limited program. After service, I took Myra to the cellar not as punishment but as pilgrimage. We stood in front of 38B like it was an altar or a crime scene, depending on the angle. I opened it and showed her the remaining bottles. The handwritten labels we both know are as much for us as for the people we convinced to care. She took my hand. "Do you want me to close it?" she asked. "I want us to decide what we keep here together," I said, "and what we take home." She nodded. "Then tonight we take home the good champagne," she said, "to drink on our terrible couch and toast the fact that we did not let the story swallow us." We did. We argued about dosage and acidity like people who know how to hide affection in analysis. We laughed at something that wasn't funny and made it be. Later, in the soft dark, her leg fit between mine like the lock it always is. We kissed without trying to pay off any debts. We fell asleep with our foreheads touching, which is our compromise between passion and truce. A month later, a member wanted to rent a locker for emergencies. I handed him the brochure and asked if he meant birthdays or consequences. He blinked and chose a different restaurant. Good. We don't sell absolution by the month anymore. Myra moved her bored dinners to boring rooms and called it ethics. I stopped treating the cellar like a church and started treating it like a pantry with good lighting. We still mess up. We still pick at scabs. We still occasionally press into each other against the counter and laugh because the spoon drawer always rattles. The Rioja is long gone. The terrace is still there, pretending to be a metaphor no one asked for. And I am still a man who listens to corks. Last week, a couple asked me for a bottle that would make their late apology taste like a future. I brought them a Grenache too young by a year and said that was the point. They drank it like people who intended to live long enough to think I was right. After close, I took a bottle upstairs, not to the terrace, to the roof of our building where the light is honest and nobody takes pictures. Myra met me there in a navy blazer that means nothing now. We passed the bottle between us and let the city do what it does, try to sell us on its sincerity. She kissed me with her mouth tasting like red fruit and proof. I put my hand on her throat gently and felt her pulse remind me where the story lives. There are still lockers full of secrets in my care. There will always be, but our house has fewer. And when Myra writes my name now, it's not on an envelope for a stranger to carry. It's in steam on the bathroom mirror while I'm shaving, quick, impatient, a little messy. It disappears as I watch because that's what steam does. The point isn't whether it stays. It's whether I was there to see it and whether I looked up in time and whether we let it mean what it meant before it cleared.